A lot of teachers say that they're doing CLT, but the lesson still feels flat, awkward, or even overly controlled. Usually it's not because the idea is wrong, and it's certainly not because they're a bad teacher. It's actually because a few small teaching decisions are quietly stopping real communication from happening. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through 5 common CLT mistakes that new teachers make, including one that can undermine the whole lesson without the teacher even realizing it. Okay, let's start with number 1, which is talking too much as a teacher. Here is a golden rule about CLT. You are not teaching students how to communicate per se. You are creating the conditions for communication to happen. You may have heard of the term TTT. This means teacher talk time. We can think about it in relation to STT, which is student talk time. So what is your TTT to STT ratio at the moment? If it is like 80% TTT and 20% STT, then this is not actually real CLT at all. It's much closer to something like a lecture. In a communicative classroom, you usually want to flip that. Okay, number 2 is choosing the wrong group size. So this is something that I see a lot, especially with newer teachers. The ideal number in a small group is actually 3. Your good other option could be 4. Once you get to 5, group work often starts to go wrong because it becomes easier for students to disappear and maybe to let others take over or to let the stronger students dominate. So this brings me on to number 3, which is getting task timing wrong. So even if your groups are well sized, the activity that you give them can still fail if the timing is off. So, for instance, if the activity is too short, students may not have had enough time to get into it. If it's too long, the energy can drop as the task goes on and they can kind of like lose momentum. But here's the thing. Students need to know how long an activity or a task is going to be because it kind of gives them an indication of how much time they should invest in that. Okay, number 4 is interrupting group work too often. Let's very briefly go back to the golden rule of CLT that is about allowing students to communicate rather than teaching them communication per se. When you as a teacher go into a group, you're actually risking warping that dynamic and it can really shut things down. There's actually also a practical issue here as well. If you are focused too heavily on one group, you're no longer properly monitoring the rest of the room. And your job is not to dominate one conversation and spend all your time in one group. Your job is to keep an eye on the classroom as a whole and step in only when it is really needed. So finally, number 5 is wasting the feedback stage. So what do I mean by this? Well, as a teacher trainer, I often noticed that after an activity finished, it was almost like, well, what was the point of that? Because you didn't really get any feedback from the students. An important thing to know about CLT is that in the feedback stage, you really want to hear from as many students as possible. And that's about like what they talked about or what their opinions are about a discussion that they had. This gives you a chance to check language use and also offer correction where necessary. One way that I used to do this, which was really effective, was that I would ask one student in a group to talk about another student. So I'd ask them to tell me what their partner said. That really helped me to work out whether the communication in that group had been successful or not. It can also help you in your class to identify who the stronger and also who the weaker students are. In the CLT classroom, the stronger, the more confident, the more forthright students are often the first to speak. But it's your job as the teacher to make sure that everyone gets the chance. That's why the feedback stage is super important. Okay, so if you want to do CLT well, it's not enough just to put students into groups and hope for the best. You need to think really carefully about how much you are talking, how the groups are organized. how long a task should last for, when you should step in, and how you use feedback afterwards. Get these things right, and communication becomes much more likely to happen. And in turn, language learning will also happen. Subscribe to ELT with Micky and Ide and share in the comments which of these 5 mistakes you think is the most common. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.